everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to have you guys back here with me this week. Now we are going to be doing some more partial knitting because, well, it's so exciting. I thought it'd be quite nice to actually show you guys how to do little flaps that you can layer over each other. Now I have done it using different colors just to show you variation, and of course the changes are right at the end of the video, so do try them out because I've given you a really nice variation to try, and I'm actually going to be trying it myself just to see how it turns out. Now if you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on all the exciting techniques I have lined up for you, and also don't forget to check out my website. I've got some amazing patterns launching almost every week, but if you are looking for patterns that are exclusive to you at a slightly reduced rate, make sure you look at the membership options and or check out my Patreon group, which is just full of ideas. So see me there. If you've got any questions, let me know, and let's get started. So I've gone ahead and casted on a few needles and knitted a few rows, and the first thing we are going to be doing is selecting our holding cams onto hold position on our carriage. So my holding cams on the silver reed are on the left and right hand side, which go from 2 to 1. If you are using a brother, it will go from N to H, and any other makes you can just find the information online or let me know in the comments below and I will look it up for you. Okay, so I've knitted a bit in the pink. So I ran out of the pink yarn, so I'm just going to swap my colour over to the green yarn, but I would actually like to show you how to do each section of the swatch in different colour. Okay, so my cams are on hold position and my carriage is currently on the right hand side. So now if you've watched all my tutorials on partial knitting, you should hopefully know the rule of opposites by now. Now my carriage is on the right hand side. Okay, so everything on the left hand side of where I want the flap to be will go on to hold position. Okay, so my flap is going to be on the center 10 needles, which means everything on the left of that needle there will go on to hold position. And now I go ahead and knit one row. Now everything on the right of the 10 needles will go on to hold position. So essentially we are knitting in the center section. So I think I've posted a few videos of partial knitting with different variations to similar techniques, but I think it's really great to give you guys an idea of how to use the holding cams. So we are going to be knitting on just the center section. Okay, now what I'm going to do, every time on the first row of that section, I'm going to knit a slack row. Okay, now I'll tell you in a moment why. So my current tension is 5. I am just going to go all the way up to 10, but you can pick a slightly tighter row. Okay, sorry, I meant slightly tighter tension. Okay, now I've just, for some reason I just struggle to see the stitches sometimes. Okay, so I've knit one row on tension 10. I'm going to go back down to 5 and I'm going to knit quite a few rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I've picked 10 to work with, and I'm going to take my weights off that center section and I'm going to grab a hold of a transfer tool, so you can use whichever one you're comfortable using. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and lift some stitches up. Okay, so if I start with the right hand side here, okay, so because I did my first row with a slack course, okay, it's a slack row, so I can actually really see the stitches down here. Okay, so that's what you want to be picking up. Now there isn't a right or wrong with this, so you can actually go through the stitches if you like, but I kind of prefer to go through in between the stitches solely because I can actually see the stitches. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and grab the loops and gently lift it up and place it on my needles, okay? So I'm going to do it 2 at a time, but again, you can pick a single prong transfer tool to work with if you find that easier, okay? I think it might be easier, to be honest, but it's whatever you find comfortable. Okay, so I've lifted all my stitches up and placed them on the needle. If you're missing a couple here and there, do not worry. Honestly, not the end of the world. Okay, so obviously managed to push all my needles forward. My carriage is on the right hand side, okay? So pick those 10 needles that we did the flap on, okay? Push them slightly over to the back where the stitches lay just behind the latch. Plus, pick the needles on the left of those needles slightly over to the back and knit 1 row, okay? Move your cams back to normal knit position, or you can simply push these slightly over to the back as well and knit another. So if you just push these to the back as well, it will just sort of cut a small step out of constantly having to move the holding cams from haul to normal and normal to hold, okay? So I've done my first flap. I am going to repeat that. So this time I'm going to push those left needles forward. I'm going to knit 1 row and I'm going to push the right needles forward, okay? Now at this point, if I wanted to, I could change my color because I just want to use a different color for the next flap, and I'm going to be using the white. Again, you don't have to change the color, but I just want to show you guys how to do so. Right, now my tension is going to go on to 10. I knit my first row as a slack row. I go back to tension 5 and I knit my 10 rows. So I like to hang my weights here. Okay, so I use these hanging weights with the rubber weights. You can use whatever you're comfortable with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I have done my 10 rows. And I'm going to go ahead and take my weights off. And I'm going to go back down to that first row of that white yarn, okay, which was a slack row for me, and I'm going to lift the stitches up and place them on the needles. So you can see how easily I do this when the row is a slack row, okay? So again, just work with whatever works best for you and your design. I've done so, and I'm going to push those needles slightly over to the back, including the needles on the left of it. And this time I am maybe going to change my color back to the green, okay? I'm sort of just doing it as I go along, I suppose. And I'm going to knit across once, okay? Then push these slightly over to the back and knit another. So this is what the swatch is currently looking like. You can see all these layers starting to form and they're just over each other, okay? So the changes that you can make to this swatch, number 1 would be to do more rows in between these flaps. So that will basically spread them out a little bit more on your swatch, but if you want it to be quite crowded, then I would do it exactly the same way I've just shown you, which is just 2 rows in between each of these sections. The other thing you can do is that we've used a set amount of needles, which is 10 needles for each of these sections. You can, of course, you can start quite wide and you can go quite small in order to create a little pattern, okay? So say we start quite big. So say we started on 30 needles and we went down by 4 needles every section. You could create a little triangle that forms, okay? So you can make it into a shape almost. I am quite tempted to try that myself and see how that turns out, but if you do, let me know and just tag me. So I hope you enjoyed that, and if you've got any questions, let me know in the comments below. I will be doing a little variation of this technique, which will be rippled for the next video. So come back and I will see you next week. Bye.